Well, let's take you across now to the United States, in particular to Washington D.C, where I can welcome to the show eNCA correspondent Nikiwe Bikitsha. Nikiwe, good morning to you. I imagine it's actually close to midnight where you are now morning here in South Africa. You are in Washington D.C. Of course, the big talking point is what President Obama had to say about this. Bring us up to speed.
Well, the very latest, Gareth, is that President Obama spoke about an hour after those attacks took place in Boston. He was mindful not to call it a terrorist attack so soon after it happened, but vowing that whoever was to blame and whoever was behind it and why it had happened would be brought to account. He urged people not to jump to conclusions and to label this a terror attack at that stage, but said that whoever was behind it would certainly be held to account. Now, subsequent to that, Gareth, a notice has come from the White House that they do believe, indeed, that it was a terrorist attack. They're now also using the words that in fact the explosions were bomb attacks as well, which took place at the end of the Boston Marathon here shortly before 3 o'clock this afternoon Eastern time here in the U.S. So we've had rolling coverage here of those events, shocking visuals coming from that state of Massachusetts. 3 people were killed, Gareth, and over 140 people injured. Those are the latest figures that we're reporting here from the U.S. But of course, the reaction, particularly on the East Coast, has been quite dramatic because the U.S. has, of course, been the target of similar terrorist attacks in 2011. So security on very, very high alert here in New York as well as in Washington, D.C., where I am at the moment. I can tell you, Gareth, that even about an hour after those attacks in Boston, security here on Pennsylvania Avenue, specifically around the White House, was tightened almost immediately. It was almost difficult to walk down that avenue. That is, of course, where the White House is. That's where I was based while I was attending the IMF meetings, and trying to make my way down to my hotel, which is also on the same street, was near impossible this afternoon.
As far as the security situation now moving forward is, I imagine it's going to be much higher today, or it will be in a few hours for you. Is going to be a major public holiday across America. I imagine it's going to be rather somber, though.
And I think being the capital of the U.S., security is always quite tight in D.C., but it is going to be particularly so because it's a public holiday tomorrow. There's a big parade planned because it is Emancipation Day. This, of course, marks the day in 1862 when Abraham Lincoln signed a proclamation freeing the African-American slaves. So there's usually a great deal of fanfare here in the District of Columbia on this day. Now, the head of police as well as the mayor of D.C. held their own press conference shortly after President Obama addressed the nation, saying that there would be additional security resources allocated for the parade, but urged people not to change their plans and to continue to come out for the parade because they didn't want people to change their lives in light of this particular terror attack that took place in Boston, but said that they would be operating on a heightened state of alert. And that's the sense you get as you walk around the city earlier this evening and tonight as well.
Certainly no confirmation yet as far as who is responsible to this. Do you have any more information from your sources over in Washington as to who might have been responsible for the attack?
It would be speculating, Gareth, but early reports suggest that there is no suspect. No group has come forward to claim responsibility, but judging by some of the early reports here that there is someone who is being questioned, who's being seen as a person of interest. Now, police officials have not confirmed that, but we do know that the FBI is investigating and are potentially speaking to someone who may also have been injured in these attacks and is being seen as a person of interest. Not much detail available about that person. They're not deeming that person a suspect, but as they call it here, a person of interest is being questioned.
Well, by mere virtue of having the FBI involved, this is now a federal investigation. That means that a terror attack like this will be seen as a crime as well. How are the FBI reacting to this in Washington? Are you seeing a lot of FBI agents moving around there, or is that information hard to come by?
What is interesting about D.C., Gareth, is that at the best and the worst of times, security is always very, very intense because the White House is here. It is the seat of the U.S. government. But also you have major institutions like the IMF and the World Bank, which take about half the precinct of Pennsylvania Avenue, and then the next, of course, is the seat of the U.S. government. So the place is always crawling with security, not just the FBI, but Metro Police as well, and also security officials from the IMF and World Bank. It's one of the most highly guarded roads on this nation. And because they host so many international events, they're always prepared for any kind of eventuality. But in an instance such as this, one couldn't help but notice the additional security because, of course, around the White House, you see Metro Police officers as well as Secret Service as well, who on a normal day are usually just hanging around the precinct and even taking pictures with tourists. But today, the tone was very, very different. And in fact, that particular strip of road was cordoned off and tourists were sent away as far back as the Lafayette Garden. They couldn't get close to the White House as they normally would. So not only is it the FBI, it's Secret Service as well, it's Metro Police officers, there's security everywhere. A short while ago, about 3 hours ago, I went out for dinner and I could just hear helicopters flying above. As I said, my hotel is on the very same street as the White House, so you can imagine the intensity of the security around this particular precinct as well. And, of course, notably, Gareth, there are going to be many world leaders arriving in Washington in just 2 days' time for the IMF and World Bank meeting. So security is already heightened anyway.
From inside the story and from the United States, my thanks to my colleague Nikiwe Bikitsha speaking to us from the capital, that being Washington, D.C.